Today, perhaps more than ever, the modern woman finds herself navigating a labyrinth of expectations, desires, and disillusionments within the realm of romantic connection. She is told to be strong, independent, a force in the world, and yet, within the intimate confines of her heart, she often encounters a perplexing paradox. The very strength that defines her seems, at times, to elicit a peculiar withdrawal in the man she desires. He may pursue with fervor, captivated by her light, her drive, her very essence, only to seemingly recoil when that essence shines too brightly, when her voice rings too clearly, when her presence fills the space too completely. This is the enigmatic terrain we will explore, the subtle dance of presence and absence, the profound psychology that unfolds when a man begins to crave the silence of a woman's absence. It is a truth often whispered in the quiet corners of the feminine psyche, a feeling both deeply personal and universally experienced. You pour your energy, your vulnerability, your very soul into a connection, only to find the recipient stepping back, creating a void where warmth and intimacy once resided. The natural human response is to lean in, to bridge the gap, to understand the shift. Yet it is in this very act, born from a place of love and a desire for closeness, that the dynamic can become further unbalanced. For what if his retreat is not a reflection of your inadequacy, but rather a complex interplay of his own inner world, his unconscious fears, and the archetypal forces that shape male-female dynamics? Consider the man grappling with his own shadow, that unacknowledged and often disowned aspect of his being. In the presence of a woman who embodies her own power, her own sovereignty, he may unconsciously encounter the parts of himself that feel weak, inadequate, or unexpressed. Her very radiance can illuminate his inner darkness, triggering discomfort and a subconscious need to create distance. This is not a conscious rejection of her, but rather an unconscious recoil from the confrontation with his own unintegrated self. He may project these feelings onto her, perceiving her strength as overwhelming or her independence as a challenge to his masculinity, when in reality, he is wrestling with his own internal landscape.
Furthermore, the dance of ego and anima plays a crucial role. The anima, in Jungian psychology, represents the feminine archetype within the male unconscious. He is drawn to the woman who embodies the qualities of his anima, the emotional depth, the intuitive wisdom, the nurturing spirit. However, if the external woman too closely mirrors the idealized image of his anima, his ego may feel threatened, losing its sense of definition and control. The ego seeks boundaries, a sense of separateness. The overwhelming presence of a powerful feminine energy can blur those boundaries, leading to a subconscious pushback in an attempt to reassert his individual identity. The silence he craves is not necessarily a silence devoid of her, but a silence within himself, a space to recalibrate his ego in relation to the potent feminine force before him. This is not to excuse dismissive behavior or emotional unavailability. Rather, it is an invitation to understand the deeper currents at play, the unconscious scripts that often dictate our relational patterns. When a man retreats, the temptation is to immediately question one's own worth, to analyze every word and action for perceived flaws. But what if the focus shifted? What if the silence he seeks becomes an opportunity for your own introspection, a moment to reconnect with your inner power, independent of external validation? The journey of individuation, the lifelong process of becoming a whole and integrated self, is a solitary path that we walk alongside others. His need for space may be a reflection of his own journey, his own internal work that requires solitude and contemplation. To respect that space, without internalizing it as a personal rejection, is an act of profound self-respect and understanding. It is in these moments of perceived absence that a woman has the opportunity to cultivate her own inner landscape, to nurture her own growth, and to discover the unwavering strength that resides within. The silence strategy: master the game of love in silence.
The impulse to bridge the distance is a deeply ingrained feminine instinct. The desire to nurture, to mend what feels broken, to restore harmony, is a powerful and beautiful aspect of the feminine archetype. Yet, when this impulse is driven by an underlying fear of abandonment or a belief that her worth is contingent upon his presence, it can become a shadow expression. This is the critical juncture where so many women lose their power. They begin to perform, to strategize, to analyze his every move, turning the organic flow of connection into a desperate and exhausting game of chess. But what if the most powerful move is no move at all? What if the most magnetic force is not pursuit, but stillness? This is where the ancient wisdom of Stoicism offers a profound liberation. Philosophers like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus taught the dichotomy of control, the practice of distinguishing between what is within our power and what is not. You cannot control his internal world, his emotional processing, his need for solitude, or the pace of his own journey. To attempt to do so is to wage war against reality itself, a battle that can only lead to frustration and a diminishment of your own spirit. What is within your control? Your response, your peace, the cultivation of your own inner world, the decision to pour that immense, nurturing energy back into yourself. When a man pulls away and you meet his silence not with panicked pursuit, but with a graceful, quiet withdrawal of your own, something remarkable happens energetically. You cease to be the chaser, and he ceases to be the pursued. The pressure is released. By turning your focus inward to your work, your passions, your friendships, your spiritual growth, you are not playing a manipulative game of hard to get. You are engaging in an act of radical self-love. You are communicating on a deep, subconscious level that your world does not collapse in his absence. You are demonstrating that your emotional stability and sense of worth are generated from within, not borrowed from his validation.
This is the silence that he begins to crave. It is a stark contrast to the silence filled with the noise of anxious text messages, questioning calls, or the needy energy that seeps through the digital ether. The silence of a self-possessed woman is different. It is not an empty void. It is a space filled with her own rich inner life. It is the sound of her thriving. He is left alone, not with the memory of her pleading, but with the resonant echo of her quiet strength. He's given the space to actually feel her absence. In the demanding noise of her pursuit, he could not distinguish his own feelings from the pressure she was exerting. But in the resonant stillness of her self-containment, he is left to confront the void she once filled. It is in this space that he can truly begin to miss her. Not because she is employing a tactic, but because he is missing a genuine, whole, and captivating presence. He starts to wonder not what he did wrong, but what she is doing that makes her so seemingly serene. The magnetic pull of a centered soul is one of the most powerful forces in human dynamics. He is drawn not to a woman who needs him to complete her, but to a woman who invites him to share in her already complete world. The silence of her absence becomes a testament to her value, a powerful statement that she is a prize to be won, not a puzzle to be solved or a void to be filled. She becomes a sovereign queen in the empire of her own life, and it is the man's role to prove himself worthy of entering her kingdom, not the other way around.
This sovereignty is not an act of arrogance or a performance for an audience of one. It is a profound internal state, a quiet revolution of the self. The throne of this inner kingdom is not built on vanity, but on the bedrock of radical self-acceptance and the courageous work of emotional excavation. His silence, which once felt like a punishment or a void, now becomes a sacred space. It is the alchemical chamber where you can finally turn your full attention to the most important relationship you will ever have, the one with yourself. This is the time to ask the questions you may have been avoiding. Why did his withdrawal trigger such a visceral fear? What part of you believed that your worth was in his keeping? This is your invitation to do your own shadow work. His distance acts as a mirror, reflecting back the unhealed wounds and unmet needs within you. The ache of his absence is a compass, pointing directly to the parts of your soul that require your love the most. You must become a detective of your own psyche. That feeling of anxiety that bubbles up in the quiet moments, what is its origin? Often, it is the voice of an inner child, terrified of being abandoned, replaying a script written long ago. The woman who masters the silent strategy does not distract herself from this feeling. She turns towards it. She sits with that younger version of herself, offering the reassurance and safety she never received. She learns to self-soothe, to be her own secure base, transforming the terror of being alone into the sanctuary of solitude. Furthermore, this period of separation is a potent opportunity for the integration of her own animus, the masculine principle within the female unconscious. A woman with an underdeveloped or wounded animus often seeks its qualities externally in a man. She looks to him for structure, for direction, for validation of her thoughts and ideas, for a sense of purpose. When he pulls away, her world can feel directionless and chaotic. But the empowered woman uses this time to consciously cultivate her own inner masculine energy. She pours her focus into her purpose, her career, her art, her mission. She sharpens her logic, trusts her own intellect, and builds a structure for her life that is robust and self-sustaining. She becomes her own container.
As she integrates these qualities, a fundamental shift occurs. She no longer needs a man to provide these things for her, which, paradoxically, makes her infinitely more attractive. A man is not drawn to a woman who is a project to be built, but to a woman who is an empire to be admired. He feels the shift. He feels that he is no longer the center of her universe, the sole source of her stability. Instead, he sees a woman who is the center of her own universe, one who is grounded, purposeful, and complete within herself. The silence between them is no longer a chasm of her neediness, but a testament to her wholeness. He is no longer running from the pressure of her expectations, but is instead confronted with the high standard of her self-sufficiency. He realizes he must rise to meet her, that he must bring his own wholeness to the table to be worthy of hers. He left a silence, and in that silence, you found your symphony.
He is left in the void he created, but it is no longer the comfortable, ego-affirming space he sought. It is now haunted by the echo of her strength. He expected that his withdrawal would produce a predictable result, a cascade of frantic energy from her, which, while perhaps annoying, would secretly affirm his importance in her life. It would feed the part of his ego that needed to feel essential. Instead, he is met with a dignified and resounding silence. A silence that does not feel like a pained, passive-aggressive punishment, but like a genuine reorientation of her energy. He looks over his shoulder and expects to find a woman waiting by the window, pining for his return. Instead, he discovers she has built an entirely new garden, a thriving ecosystem of her own creation, and is no longer looking out the window at all. This is profoundly unsettling for the male ego that is accustomed to being the sun in a woman's solar system. The ghost of her neediness has vanished, replaced by the palpable presence of her purpose. From a distance, he observes her.
perhaps through the curated lens of social media or the reports of mutual friends. He sees her not falling apart, but rising. He witnesses her engaging with her life with a newfound vibrancy and passion. This is not a performance for his benefit. It is the authentic expression of a woman who has reclaimed her power. The woman he knew, who may have subtly molded her world around his, is gone. In her place stands a woman whose world is unapologetically her own.
In this space, his projections begin to dissolve. The image he had of her as too much or overwhelming is revealed for what it was, a reflection of his own inability to meet her energy. Now, her strength no longer seems threatening. It seems magnificent. Her independence no longer feels like a rejection of him. It feels like an inspiration. In the cathedral of his mind, the memory of her anxious pursuit fades, and it is replaced by the memory of her laughter, her wisdom, her unique light, the very qualities that first drew him to her. Her absence cleanses his palate, allowing him to taste the essence of who she truly is, without the distorting flavor of relational anxiety. You have become a lighthouse, not a life raft. A life raft is desperate, clinging to the nearest ship to be saved. A lighthouse stands firm on its own foundation, rooted in the earth, shining its light regardless of which ships are sailing by. It doesn't chase the ships. Its steady, reliable brilliance becomes a point of navigation, a beacon that ships are drawn towards for guidance and safety. Your power is no longer in what you do to get his attention, but in who you have become in the process of forgetting about it. This is the ultimate energetic shift. The craving changes its nature. It is no longer a craving for the silence of her absence as an escape from pressure. It transforms into a deep, primal craving for the power of her presence as an encounter with the divine feminine in its whole and sovereign form. He begins to realize that he did not just push away a woman, he walked away from an experience, an energy, a force that made him feel more alive. And now, the silence is a constant reminder of what he has lost.
And so, the cycle completes itself. The question of whether he will return and how he will return becomes secondary. The true transformation has already occurred within you. The journey was never about mastering a strategy to win him back. It was about embarking on the sacred odyssey to reclaim yourself. The man and the dynamic were merely the catalyst, the alchemical fire necessary to burn away the parts of you that believed you were less than whole. You have transmuted the lead of heartbreak into the gold of wisdom. You have arrived at the destination that was promised at the beginning of this painful journey, the unshakable core of your own being. If he does return, he will not find the same woman he left. He will find a woman who holds her peace as her most precious treasure. She will not be easily swayed by grand gestures or poetic apologies, because she has learned to trust the language of consistent action over the prose of temporary remorse. Her boundaries are no longer suggestions. They are electrified fences protecting the sacred ground of her well-being. You will assess him not from a place of longing, but from a place of discernment. Does he add to your peace, or does he subtract from it? Does his energy complement the world you have so carefully built, or does it threaten to disrupt its harmony?
This is the ultimate freedom, a state of profound and peaceful detachment. His return is no longer the prize. The prize is the woman you became while he was gone. And she is a formidable, self-sourcing, sovereign being. Your happiness is no longer a fragile thing held in the palm of his hand, subject to his whims. It is a deep wellspring within you, and you are its sole guardian. You can wish him well, whether he is standing before you or is a distant memory, because your well-being is no longer contingent upon his. His presence or absence is merely a weather pattern. You have become the mountain, unmoved, majestic, and rooted in your own truth. The silence he once craved to escape your perceived neediness is now the very silence you inhabit as your source of power. It is the silence of a mind at peace, of a heart that is full, of a soul that knows its own infinite value. You are no longer a participant in his story waiting for your lines. You are the author, the narrator, and the protagonist of your own epic. The game of love is not won by capturing the king. It is won by realizing you were the queen all along, ruling a kingdom of your own design, rich with purpose, passion, and profound inner peace. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.